All right, let's go ahead and unwrap the CED a little bit more by diving into Unit 1. All right, so let me advance here on my PowerPoint. Here we go. So in your workbook handbook, so APSI handbook, there is a page for goals for your students. You can pause the video here and think about the goals that you want them to have from this course. What do you want them to be able to do? What do you want them to be able to know? And these can range from, I want them to pass the AP test, and that's an okay goal. I want my students to pass the AP test because they want to pass the AP test. To make them more environmentally literate students and people, citizens in the future, to be more critical thinkers and better readers. So those are all great goals that we have. So you can pause the video and continue when you are finished. So let's talk about the unit guides by focusing on Unit 1. So in your CED, now mine is a spiral. Yours is probably still on a binder. And let's go ahead to Unit 1. So here it's under Unit Guides, which starts on page 25. And so there's some instructions on page 25, 26, 27. And then actual Unit 1 starts here in front of the camera. And it starts on page 33. Now, it doesn't tell you on here, but I'm going to give you a little bit of hints. So whenever you begin a unit, I highly recommend reading this because there are some tips and hints in here that you wouldn't really know unless you read this. For example, on the CED, if you just looked at the essential knowledge statements here, there's nothing about climatographs, which are biome graphs. And it's in here though. So it's actually not in this unit, but a different unit when we talk about weather and climate, I believe. I'll have to look and see because I don't remember off the top of my head. But so reading this introduction gives you a little bit hint about the details that they need to know, because sometimes these essential knowledge statements have details and sometimes they don't. It's actually kind of a little bit hit and miss. Okay. Let's use Unit 1 as an example of the scope and sequence of the course. So in your workbook, so not the CED, but in your workbook, there is this little roadmap here that you can pause the video and do. Let me get the page. I believe it is 66, I believe, but let me just double check. It is page 66 of your workbook handbook. You can pause the video and see how many of these that you can get right, or after the video today you can look at this checklist and see how many you can get right. Okay, let's look at an example of one of the topics. So go ahead to topic 1.4. So in the CED, this is page 39. So I have it here, my paper copy. And each page is intended to represent a teachable chunk of content that might take you less than a day. Like if you go back to 1.1, it's like really quick. Not very long at all. Or you can work 1.1 into other things in your class. Actually, let me go back and double check 1.1. Introduction to ecosystems, I am wrong. 1.1 is not that fast. It's 2.1 that's fast. 1.1 about predator, prey, and symbiosis and competition. Actually, that'll take a couple days, so I apologize. I was wrong. But 1.4 about the carbon cycle, you could probably do in a day, but it would, you know, a good day, maybe some drawing notes. Now, the thing about Unit 1 and 2 is that it is a review from biology. So the kids should have seen this material before. So the CED is arranged to go from a little bit easier to a little bit harder. You know, you can agree with or disagree with that. Nothing is perfect, but a lot of what's in Unit 1 and 2 are easier. Not the nitrogen cycle, but the nitrogen cycle should be reviewed from biology class. Okay, so let's take a look at what are the most valuable pieces of this information and on this topic page. So here is, a lot of times teachers want to go all the way to what are the content they need to know, and they focus on, I got to put these in a PowerPoint and I've got to cover these, you know, lecture and notes. And you don't. We're going to talk a lot this week about ways that you can cover content without PowerPoint notes that are sometimes more effective than that. Often more effective, usually more effective. But sometimes we do PowerPoint notes because it's the quickest and easiest way for certain topics, and some things are just drill and kill, but I'm off the point. We'll go over all of this stuff when we discuss content ideas, content delivery ideas. Okay, so this is the things they need to know, but on the AP test, every topic is combined with an AP Science practice, which is a skill. So here's the suggested skill, which is a visual representation. So you can have them draw a diagram through a chalk drawing. You can have them do a doodle note or sketch notes. So that's the suggested skill. Now on the AP test, it won't necessarily match, so they could pair any of these with any AP Science practice, which is a skill that they want to pair it with. But as you're teaching it, this is a suggestion, it's not mandatory. And the AP test will not necessarily match them together. They can match any topic with any skill on the AP test. But on AP Classroom, for the formative assessment, they will match them on the formative assessments on something called personal progress checks. Then we have here, so let me forward it a little bit. Let's talk about the available resources. So these are some optional things that you can look at. If you're looking at the PDF version, they are clickable. So I use a combination of paper and PDF when I work with the CED for my own classes and develop my lesson plans. Instructional strategies. Okay, so in the CED, go ahead to these pages here, and we have our instructional strategies. So these are ways to get content across without the straight PowerPoint lecture, different things that you can do. You should know some of these just from teaching. And, you know, from fishbowl to debate to think, pair, share, they just want you to be aware that our course content can be covered in a lot of different ways. And then also developing the science practices. So how we develop the science practices with our students is important as well. The science practices go from easy to hard, and then there are some example activities that you could use to develop these skills. So they're trying to give you lots of ideas about how to structure your course with topics and skills together. So skills are just as important as content. All right, going on. So here's some examples. So a debate. So in topic 1.5, they recommend a debate. So 1.5 is the nitrogen sample. And you could do a debate about the nitrogen cycle. about human impacts on the nitrogen cycle, things like fertilizers running into the Gulf of Mexico. How can you help solve that? Because the farmers want to keep fertilizing. You can't just ban fertilizer. How are we going to grow our food? So that's one topic you could do a debate for. And so they have samples in here to help you prepare your course. Again, they're optional activities. And again, feel free to modify the activities. The CED is just a guide. It is not a dictatorship or the curriculum you have to follow step by step. And they are common instructional strategies, things that you probably have learned in other professional development in the past. So let's take a look a little bit into AP Classroom. As a little introduction, we'll work with AP Classroom a lot during the next few days. So this is just a little introduction. Some of you who've taught this course before are going to be very happy because they've modified the sign-in page because they've gotten a lot of feedback that it's very hard to use. So they have a sign-in right here. And now you're going to end up with a landing page. So this is going to be the new landing page. It might be up already. I'm not totally sure about that. But once you log in, you can immediately go to AP Classroom, which was harder to do. And you had to kind of click here and there and scroll down until you found AP Classroom. And now it's going to be right here ready for you. And so if you have not taught AP Classroom before, have not taught AP before, you will get a demo AP Classroom account. And I'm going to walk you through how to use all of the resources in AP Classroom. We're going to do about 3 hours of AP Classroom. You're going to watch some of their tutorials and then my tutorials as well that I'll walk you through how to use parts of AP Classroom. And I've used it a lot this year. One of the things up here, take a look at the help button. I did for APSI consultants, I did a webinar, a live webinar where we can actually ask questions of the College Board about all the changes to AP Classroom. And one of the things they pointed out was this big help button. And we went, there's a help button. And yeah, that would have been, helpful. So in the help button, it has frequently asked questions, teacher guide to AP Classroom, for students, their guide to AP Classroom, teacher tutorials, and then if you're having trouble, here's a place that you can message right away. And so they're going to have the tutorials that I'll have you guys take a look at as well, and then also we'll walk you through step by step some things from AP Classroom this week. All right. One of the things I also want to point out is that the skills spiral and repeat across units. So over here are our skills. They are color-coded. The AP Science practices are color-coded. This is in the CED pages 20 to 23, so you can pause the video and find it there. And they want you to know that they repeat across units, so hopefully they're working on skills throughout the year, although some of them don't start heavy until later. Like if you look at the green one, which is environmental solutions, they start a little bit later. They're trying to, not completely, but they're trying to do some of the easier skills at the beginning and some of the harder skills later, but it doesn't, it's not perfect. And so you can see environmental solutions is all throughout here. It also, if you take a look at this CED pages 14 and 15, it will tell you here, as you go down, you go from easier to harder. So throughout the year, start with the easier environmental solution skills to the harder environmental science skills, and they try and do that throughout the CD. Again, it's not perfect, but that is what they're trying to do to the best ability that they can when they developed the course. Scaffolding and spiraling the skills. Okay, so we can see that this science skill appears in different units. You can see in the different places where it appears. Okay, so they just want you to see that. All right, and so that's just a little preview on AP Classroom.